Hi, everybody. This is Guy Coffee with Franchise Business Real Talk, sitting in Steamboat Springs, Colorado today, and on the phone or on the system here with Mr. Doug Mark from Learning Zen. Wanted to introduce everybody to Doug, and we'll hear a little bit about his backstory. But long story short is Learning Zen is a system that we implemented at Frenchies that really helped our franchise owners, and just felt like it would be helpful for other people to hear about Doug, Learning Zen, and how it helped an emerging brand called Frenchies. So with that, I'm going to turn it over for Doug to introduce himself. Doug, thanks for being on. Appreciate the time, and want to introduce you to some more people out there.
Well, Guy, I really appreciate that. I said before, this is my pleasure. This is an exciting and fun thing that I get to do. I'm not usually in the seat, though. I'm usually in your seat, asking all of the questions. So it's kind of fun to be on the other side of that. But appreciate the introduction. I'm calling in from Kensington, Maryland, so just outside of the Washington, D.C. border by a couple of miles. And we've got a sunny afternoon for the first time in a long time. So I've got nothing to complain about. It's all great. And the introduction that you gave me was amazing.
Welcome to springtime. We're loving it, right?
Yeah, exactly. If the rain would only stop, but it's beautiful. Everything's turning green. The flowers are coming out. It's a lot to be excited about.
Yeah, good. Well, I wanted to kind of back up into, where we were and then introduce Learning Zen, its effect on us. But, when I turn it back over to you, I'd love to hear about like how you started, and what your background is and where you see the company going. But just for the folks that are listening that are in franchising, Learning Zen is a learning management system. It's a platform that Frenchies adopted a few years ago now, right during COVID or right after COVID, as a way to help our franchise owners make operating our business more simple. What we were doing, we were spending a lot of man hours, or in our case, mostly woman hours, training new managers, training technicians, training owners. And we've got, over the past few years, we've built up 95 programs in it that takes a lot of that load off. It's a self-progression learning, different formats of learning. And then we also get the reports on how people are doing on that through their quizzes. And what it's done is taken it from, like, for instance, our nail technician training used to be 44 hours one-on-one. And now we've gotten that down to about like 18 or 20 hours and something like that. Our director of learning would know that better than me, but what it's done is really simplified the operations. And it's all because of this learning management platform and how well it's working, how easy it is for us to add, not that it's easy, but it's straightforward on how to add programs and learning courses, and then easy for our people in the field, frontline workers, managers, even our owners, learn on that platform. So how did you get into this? Because it's education, it's technology. There's a lot of background on this.
It is. And yeah, I mean, it's so nice to kind of hearing a client who's using it, talk a little bit about how it's helped them and kind of supported them as they're going through their growth. And you also mentioned, COVID, and I think that was an interesting time for a lot of, franchise systems, because everybody had to figure out, okay, I can't jump on a plane right now. I can't be seeing people in person. I've got to find a way to reach my community somehow. And so it was a really interesting time to be in a field that kind of provided, e-learning, where we could actually continue to teach brand standards and the systems that these franchisors had built and keep the consistency, even though maybe they couldn't be at all of those locations. So yeah, it's so that's awesome to hear. And when it comes to my story and really kind of the story of Learning Zen, it's an interesting one in the sense that, like you mentioned, it's technology, it's learning. We're on the kind of front lines of what's happening out there with content creation and of course, all of the talk of AI right now. And it's a lot, it's overwhelming at times. My personal background was in computer systems management.
Okay.
And that's what my degree is in. And what that kind of means at the end of the day is I know a little bit about everything and a lot about nothing.
All right.
So I don't have like one degree. I don't have a degree in like database administration or something. So I'm pretty comfortable in all systems and have like a basic understanding of how everything works and
ties together.
My career started. Yeah, exactly. And my career started in training and education.
Okay.
So actually worked for one of the, like a massive learning management company at the time called Saba, and
Right.
I would be sent site to site, so flying out to whether it was Taiwan, Costa Rica, or the middle of America, and I would implement a learning management system for a business that we worked with, and then I would actually teach them how to use the system, but then also how to create training content as instructional designers using what at the time was called a Scorum authoring tool.
Okay.
And that was wonderful for me because I got to see the world. I got to do something I love, which is to teach. I also learned so much about these businesses. But I got an opportunity about 15 years ago to come work for the company they work at right now, which is Learning Zen. But our parent company is called Gold Systems Incorporated. And we're based out of Salt Lake City, Utah. And our parent company is custom software developers. And the thing that makes our story so interesting is we do a lot of government projects, things with the federal government, state government, local tribes, and it was always custom software development. Well, after 9/11 happened, we got contacted by the FAA because they needed to write an event notification system for the FAA for their airmen and women. And so that's men and women like you and I that are flying personal aircraft. There's over 1 million of them, located geographically all over the
Sure.
world. And there was a lot of training that had to be put out there, but there was a lot of changes to things like airspace restrictions and takeoffs and
Oh,
landings. And we got hired to do this project with them, and it was incredible, like as far as the relationship it was with the
yeah.
FAA. And at the end of the day, we ended up creating a learning management system for them on top of this event system,
Jeez.
and it was wildly successful. They loved it. We really loved getting into the LMS world at that point in our careers, and we said, well, maybe there's a way that we could build something that would provide e-learning to everyone. Now, keep in mind that's not who we are today,
Right.
but it is who we were when we started out.
Sure.
And in business, you kind of evolve and you pivot
Oh,
and you
absolutely.
you make some decisions, sometimes driven by you, sometimes driven by your board of directors. But we
Yes.
had this notion that we could create this beautiful platform that anybody could create training on, because you didn't have to have a master's degree in instructional design to create courses.
Right.
And we kind of rolled like that for the first couple of years. And then our board was like, well, how do you guys plan on making money off of this?
Okay. It's important.
And well, it was always, if we bring them, what the learners will come, and if we took a portion of what everybody sold from their courses, this would be a great, opportunity for us. Well, that obviously changed because we got to the point where we realized, well, we need to be able to make some money. So how can we kind of offer something that's unique? And so we took this system that we built, which was a SaaS based, in the cloud product, and we focused on creating a training system that businesses could provide to their own employees, or in franchising's case, their franchisees, their owners, all of the location administrators and things like that. And we identified franchising as like a key target market because of the fact that it all comes down to consistency,
Yep.
repeatability, duplication.
Replication.
And so it
Yep.
was like ding, 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 like this is a perfect fit for us. But we still dabbled in some other areas. We were in safety, and we still were doing things with associations. And it really wasn't until about 5 years ago that we made a business decision to say, hey, you know what? There are so many fish out in this ocean right now. We need a smaller pond to play with,
Mhm.
because we don't have, angel investors giving us, $30 million at a
Right.
time. So how can we kind of make a name for ourselves and really get great at one thing?
Okay.
And so we decided we would stick with franchising and kind of rebranded our platform as a franchising LMS, and created functionality so that every franchise client could, brand the site as their own. And we had created a role so that franchisees could oversee and administer what was happening at their locations, while the franchisor could, review what's happening at all of the franchisee locations.
Yeah.
So that was a really long-winded way of kind of getting to where we are today, which is a franchise learning management system.
Well, I love that you landed on franchising. We're huge fans of the business model ourselves, and I'm sure Gold Systems is a very large and successful company, and they don't need input from little old me in franchising. But from my perspective, I just think
Well,
it's a smart move because franchising is such a big industry that people don't know about. It's like, it's 17% of the jobs
yeah.
in America. And a lot of those people are
It-
frontline workers that need to be trained. And then you also get the benefit of it's not every new business is a one-off. It's like you could come up with a system for
right.
like a smaller system like ours and apply the same principles to a gigantic system, just a lot more units to charge for. So it makes sense from a business perspective
Yeah.
for sure. And one of the things that we liked about Learning Zen, besides meeting you and Cassandra, and and we had that great initial meeting, and it's been great. The partnership's been fantastic. And it was fun
Thank
running
you.
into you guys in Phoenix a couple months ago, outside of the coffee shop, ironically. And
Yeah.
we also appreciated your partnering with us for our conference. I know you couldn't make it there, but you offered a nice gift for somebody that won one of our awards, and I thought that was really
Yeah.
nice because you have how many emerging brands in franchising are you working with right now? You have a ton of them.
We do. So I was actually just going through the numbers, to kind of take a look at what do we have for established versus what do we have for existing. And so there's about 125 franchise brands that we work with, and there's probably 35 to 40 of those are emerging.
Okay.
And for me, that's kind of like and I suppose it's a little bit different depending on who you talk to as far as what is emerging, but these are groups that are kind of either starting off with a couple of locations, but they haven't kind of cracked that sort of 50 unit limit for us. And so we
Yeah.
work with a lot of brands in that particular space. I did want to circle back to one thing that you were just talking about when you talked about getting into franchising
Right.
and the sort of avenue that we chose. And one thing that was interesting for me was I've talked about franchising before and I actually created a short little clip on this that I called it the F word for a while, which is kind of an interesting, and for,
Okay.
because I think in some realms, franchising is like a term that people are like scare people off
Mm,
sometimes,
yep.
or they use the word chain or something like that. And I think people really forget that at the end of the day, franchisees are small business
Yeah.
owners.
Yep.
And that's what really struck for me. My parents own a small business in Concord, New Hampshire, and I don't even want to say their ages because they're going to smack me if they see this, but they're in their 80s and they still go in, every single day to the office and work their butts off. But
Right.
at the end of the day, when you're meeting up with franchisees, you're meeting small business
Yeah.
owners, and chances are your kids are, playing soccer together and things like that. And it felt like we had a chance to really make a difference for small business
Oh
owners
yeah.
because a lot of franchisees they have an entrepreneurial spirit, but they're not entrepreneurs,
Right.
right? So they're entrepreneurial, but they want a system to follow with a
Yep.
blueprint, and that just fits so perfectly with what we do.
Mhm.
My instructional design buddies are gonna just crucify me for saying this, but at the end of the day, instructional designers are always talking about education, education, education.
Sure.
And what we're talking about is training, training, training.
Well,
And it's a little bit different. With education is kind of I would say the long-term effect. And training is kind of the short-term transfer of skills and knowledge.
right.
And what we do when we work with franchisors is we're trying to find a way to kind of transfer training to the franchisees and then have those franchisees be able to kind of transfer the system, the message, why we do certain things the way that we do to their employees. And that's what keeps the consistency at all of the locations.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. That's the
I
key.
always think, right, like so many people forget about this. When you go into a franchise location, you rarely talk to a franchisee
Right.
or an owner.
Right.
You talk a lot of times to an hourly staff. And so whenever I hear the words about, a great customer experience, I think that starts with the hourly staff
Oh,
and making sure that training gets down to the franchisees, and then from the franchisees down to the hourly staff is what kind of builds that consistency in franchising and keeps your message succinct and even across all locations. And that's what I love, is helping them kind of expand and realize that, if we do a good job training and coaching these franchisees, the system will start to sell itself, because the fastest way to sell a franchise location is, by one of your franchisees being really successful and saying, I'll do another,
Yeah.
or I'll do five, I'll take five,
Yep.
Anytime Fitnesses, right? Like,
Absolutely.
whatever, and so, yeah, that's just kind of an interesting thing that I always think about. It comes down to really helping small business owners, and that makes us feel great.
Yeah. And small business owners are community members and neighbors and friends and things like that. And that was another thing that really stood out, because when we were looking, like my wife Stephanie and I, who co-founded Frenchies, we bootstrapped it. It was our own money, and we were growing this team and this system, and we knew that we really needed a learning management system. And and there's some really well-known ones out there that are just not built for the size of a system that we are. Just maybe they would work, technology wise, for sure, but not from a cost perspective wise. It's like the mapping software.
Yeah, you'd have to hire a full-time administrator.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. Yeah. So the beauty of working with LearningZen was, we have a rock star on our team that Kayla Bramlett, and she was already teaching a lot of the technical aspect of it, and she's always looking to learn and grow, and she wanted to help others learn and grow just like she did. And so it was affordable. It was a worthwhile investment. We've gotten our ROI. Like there's no way that we would have, been, had the private equity company, Riverside company, invest in us unless we had really good systems in place. And LearningZen was one of those systems in place that, because that was one of the big things. Like, how do you train these people? How do you have brand conformity from Ventura, California to Tampa, Florida? Like, how are they doing it all the same? And we didn't have to say we have this group of people that flies everywhere. Yeah, we do, but there's a lot of learning that goes on ahead of time before they get there, that 80% of it's covered under an automated asynchronous system, so people can be doing it at their own time, not, aligning schedules. And it's been huge for us. And, it was good for us because it was also affordable in the beginning, and it's scalable, and we love it. And Kayla has also developed great skills on how to build courses and make them work for people, and we get feedback. But I was going to say, and you had touched on it earlier, is like as you said earlier, there's no getting around AI, especially for building content, that you can kind of let AI run with it, build it, and then you go back and correct anything that is particular or needs to be customized to your own system. But how are you guys integrating AI in LearningZen?
Yeah, man, I love that question, and it's a bit loaded in some senses because
we'll take the Cliff Notes version.
There's so many tools, right, that are out there, and what we've realized is, and you see this a little bit in franchising sometimes, right, where if you buy one of these robust all-in-one systems, it's hard to be great at all of those different things, and so there's a part of us that is kind of going slowly with an integration of an AI tool into LearningZen itself. And that's because every 6 months, AI has evolved, and there's a new tool out that's better than the tool that you used yesterday. And it's really hard, right, to keep up with that. And so you think of a relatively smaller business like ours trying to integrate one of these products in. By the time we get it done, it could be obsolete, or something newer and better is coming along that's, shinier, faster, smarter, because as we're talking about machine learning, they're always getting better. And so we've kind of taken a different road than I think some other players maybe in this space has been. And what that's been is we've studied the industry, and we use the tools, and we make recommendations based on what our clients are trying to do at the end of the day. And so we ask them, what is your goal, and what is your objective of this, course? And the goal, right, is often, something that maybe is, not as measurable as maybe the objective might be at the end of the day. The goals could be, let's improve, customer service by 50%. And maybe the objective is, okay, well, let's get, clients' orders out to them in less than 3 minutes. And my mind's going crazy because I just watched the Ray Kroc story, which was like this movie came out like 8 years ago and I never
The
saw it, and
founder, the
I
founder,
watched
right?
it, and yeah, the
Yeah.
founder, and there's some really interesting things inside of it, which is part of it was, well, how you opened up these franchise locations that you couldn't keep consistent, and that's a big challenge. But to circle us back to how kind of AI is fitting into the place, as we learn about your goals and objectives, we can say, hey, there's a tool that's really great for that. So, for example, if you're going to teach somebody how to use your POS system, there's a couple of tools that are really great about that. And like I would say, okay, have you ever heard of Guide? Guidde. And Guide.ai basically allows you to take your mouse and cursor and navigate through your POS system. And it's creating little hotspots along the way for every time that you click. And it's reading off that application what the field is as well. And at the end, it actually creates a movie version of your tutorial. And it's incredibly quick, and the editing is amazing. And so that's a great tool for teaching you how to use a
Yeah.
system. Now, if you taught me, let's say you wanted something else. Let's say, okay, I know the secret sauce at Frenchie's is not something that anybody can get. That's in your head, and that's in Stephanie's head, and these are things that you guys have to be able to create training courses for in order to relate that information. But there are other things like, hey, how do we greet a customer, or how do what's the importance of upselling? And if you want to create a video that teaches your technicians the importance of upselling, you could actually type that into a prompt just like ChatGPT takes, and put it into a system like InVideo.
Okay.
And in video, you can say, hey, you know what? I'm a franchise business called, Frenchies, and we have nail technicians. We want to teach them how to be better at upselling. And what it's going to do is it actually, and let's say you do one more thing. Let's keep the video to 3 minutes or less. We want always bite-sized chunks that they can absorb. And in video, as far as their learning technology goes, it can actually create a video. It's going to use your branding as far as your name referenced in it. It's going to create a series of bite-sized clips that teach about what is upselling and why it's important to the customer experience. At the end of the day, it's not about making more money. It's about giving the customer a better experience. And it's going to pump that video out in like 5 minutes.
Wow. Really?
Now, it may not be perfect, right? And that's the thing is, you've got to think of AI as like an intern that's working for you, right? That just started. You've got to review their work, but I think it's going to get you 90% of the way. Yeah. And with both of those tools that I just mentioned, they have really great editing capabilities, so it's easy to make a change along the way as well. And then this last one I'm going to mention is in franchising. A lot of times we're actually even we're crossing borders, and we have concepts that speak multiple languages and things like that. And there's a tool that we use or recommend a lot called LumaOne AI. And LumaOne, it can do a couple of things really amazing. If you've got a PowerPoint, it can pull your PowerPoint in, turn it into a movie, and create a transcript of that. Well, if you've got a video that you shot, it can absorb your video, do a transcript of your voiceover, translate that transcript to a different language, and then revoice it over with AI into Spanish, Chinese, Portuguese, French. It doesn't matter.
Really?
And these tools are getting so good that you can't tell that it's an AI voice doing it on the back end. Right. And I just think about it makes me so excited because like the time saving that we get as creators these days. I'd be a little bit more nervous if I was in the business and my job was, creating training or creating content. If you're not leveraging these tools, I think you're crazy because they're massive time savers.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, one other tip. Yeah. It's more of like a tip this has turned into, but so I started using ChatGPT to create the prompts that I feed into these other tools. So I can have ChatGPT write me a prompt to create a video inside of InVideo, making sure it talks about these 5 things. And it creates this rather elegant prompt that I can copy and paste and put into InVideo that creates the video.
Really?
And so ChatGPT being free, the other really cool thing I did the other day, I just walked in, and by the way, I'm super nice to the AI. I'm terrified that they're going to take over at some point, and so I'm really friendly. I'm like,
They
"Good
may not
morning,
care if you say
ChatGPT." You
please or
know,
thank you.
yep.
Right.
Oh no, I'm that guy. I'm thanking the Alexa. I have to say it quietly so she doesn't turn
Right.
on. Like I'm absolutely polite to all of these
Yep.
tools. But I was asking ChatGPT, what can you do that what are your capabilities with helping me create training materials? And of course, it spits out all of these different things that it can do, and it's one of those things where like you start to ask ChatGPT questions that you'd ask your buddy if you guys were out getting a coffee
Right.
together and they had expertise in like content creation, and so it's become kind of a friend that I chat to on a daily basis.
I hope it's not your only friend, Doug.
No, no,
I didn't think so.
it's my most loyal friend,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
though.
for a while. Till it turns into
Yeah,
Skynet.
exactly. I'm waiting it out until it
Right.
happens. Yep, give it 10
Yeah.
years.
So we'll put links
So
we'll put
so
links to all those the tools that you mentioned in the show notes so that not everybody has to
yeah,
as much.
really cool stuff. And so at the end of the day, we kind of prided ourselves in just saying, hey, let's be really good partners in this space that can recommend the tools that will kind of solve some of our, clients' challenges rather than picking one and putting it into our product and saying, hey, you're all pigeonholed into this one, because all of these tools that you're working with that I mentioned, they all have embed
Okay.
codes. And so if you're using video and it creates a video, you take the embed code and you put that embed code in Learning Zen. And the same thing goes with LumaOne, embed code in Learning Zen.
Okay.
And yeah, it's really slick how fast. And I'm sure Kayla knows about all of
Oh,
these
I'm
things
sure.
too. But if not, Kayla, please catch up with me. Let's talk these tools.
Well, she doesn't know it yet. She'll know it soon. She's a sponge,
Right, right.
so and that's, just going back to the franchising thing is, whether you're part of an emerging franchise or part of a bigger one, or you're using a learning management system that you like or dislike or whatever the case may be, it's the fact is that, in a franchise system, the whole thing is replication and brand conformity.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. It doesn't matter if the franchise owner that owns, a bunch of Frenchies is, preaching from the same, prayer book. If the people in front of our clients aren't all doing the same thing,
Yeah.
and with their own personalities and things like that, but they become very knowledgeable and confident. Like in our business, if our nail technicians, nail specialists, as they're call them, is if they're not confident, they can't do a good service. And so you're
Yeah.
asking them to, and it's just like whether they're taking an order at a quick service restaurant, or whether they're on a home appliance repair call for one of those franchises, like they can't do a good job unless they have good training. And it doesn't matter how
Yeah.
much, I don't care about the technologies that it takes to get that to happen. The faster the better, and and the easier and the more interesting for them. And that's another thing I liked about Learning Zen is there's different styles of learning on there. So you guys are kind of going to the psychology aspect of it, not just the X's and O's on how the
Yeah.
program works. But like that's what it makes. That's when people are good at their jobs and they're confident, they can do the job well. They usually get paid better. Like in our sense, example, they get better tips, for being a professional.
Yeah.
And it's just a virtuous circle that it's like, okay, I go to this company, they've got a plan for me, they got a tool for me to learn, and I can, as a franchise owner, I can pass that down to all the people in my organization. They're getting better, they're doing better, the clients are happier, you have more money to expand your offerings or expand geographic location, because it's not going to be all this one-to-one training. It starts with having good frontline people in front of your clients, and training them is the owner's responsibility. And I would say in franchising, the franchisor has to provide that tool so that they can do it.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, the franchisee may not be a natural born trainer, right?
So
And
many
so
aren't. Yeah.
they come from all walks of life when they come into franchising, and they don't always have maybe that natural ability to be a trainer. And I loved what you said, Guy, about the
Mm.
confidence. And I think that that's something that like you said, I mean, the more trained they are and educated on not only like how to do something, but why it's important that we do it the Frenchies way, that sort of why message. A couple of things happen. They feel this sense of pride because you've invested in
Yeah.
them. They feel this sense of confidence because they know what the job is supposed to look like when it's done right. They get some visual cues in the training of
Yep.
that. And the other thing is, and this is massive, is they're way more likely to stay with you for longer when you have invested in them. They're confident, they're making good
Yeah.
tips. And so it does seem like it's kind of win-win in that situation. So yeah, that word confidence that you mentioned a couple of times really resonated with me.
And, and more people, you see all the exit interview information, and I think money's fifth on the list. Obviously, everybody needs money to pay the bills and live a lifestyle that they want and grow. But it is not the number one thing. But being really good at your job and in general, being in a good mood about it because you're confident about it is going to help everything else downstream from that. So I do see it as a key differentiator that we've been able to use, and we appreciate working with you and the team and growing together. And I know you guys are growing and growing and growing, and it's probably just going to get better and better and better. And we're excited to have you as part of our toolbox for our franchise owners. And man, with all the the stuff going on, franchising is growing. I think we had like 400 more new franchises start last year than since COVID, before COVID. So franchising is growing as an industry. It makes sense as a model. The old thing in franchising is you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. You've got a lot of other people in the pool with you that you can learn from that are down the path further than you, maybe sometimes, usually, hopefully. And then as there's definitely a fear of AI and things like that, and all these tools, like someone that's running a small business is like, I don't really have time to learn 5 new, things.
No,
but if we can help simplify that for them, and they can save that time from having to just if they have to replace a manager and they're looking at, it's going to be 2 to 3 weeks for me to spend time with this person just on the nuts and bolts of the business, not the soft skills or anything. And you can say like, hey, we've got a great tool for you. I'm going to help you walk through it. We're going to be looking at it, going over your results. It's a game changer. So, and the better people do individually, the better it is for the community and better for, the country and everything. So I kind of look at this as a big picture thing and appreciate that everything that you guys are doing. I'm looking at your hat. I'm going to make an offer before we close this. Is like, I will send you and your team cool Frenchies hats if you're willing to send some back, some Learning Zen hats. I like that creek thing going up there to us.
Done and done. That would be great. I would be happy to do that. Yeah. And I'll rock a Frenchie's hat everywhere I go. So yeah. I used to have really long hair. I don't know if you remember that or not.
The first time I met you,
COVID,
it was at IFA in Vegas, like 20. I think it was the IFA in Vegas, February of 2020, right before the world shut down.
Right before it shut down. Yeah, I looked like a lion back then. I had this big old mane of hair, and ever since then, I've cut it off, and I've become a hat guy.
Right.
And also from a branding perspective, I like being able to kind of wear the logo out and things like that, and I have a hard time pulling it off with a suit, but I do it sometimes. and I'm like the one guy in the room is in a suit and a baseball cap, but it's always the branding for me. And the branding is so important in franchising. It's so important, I think, in the supplier realm as well, to be kind of get your message out there. So you got it.
I look in my closet at home, and unless it's, dress shirts and things like that, virtually everything I have is Frenchies. It's like 75% Frenchies, 15% Anytime Fitness, because we're still franchisees of that and fans of that system. And, the other, whatever that adds. So the other 10% is my kids' high school. Like everything's logoed.
Right.
I've always got a logo on, but it's always something that's going to benefit someone in my family. So,
well, it's one of those things where they always talk about authenticity being so important. And I think it's true. Like if you see me, most times my comfort suit, by the way, is It's a sweatshirt with a hood. I can't tell you why. It's always got a hood, and it always had thumb
Yeah.
holes.
Oh,
Like I've become this big proponent of
sure.
thumb holes. It's like a warm hug for me or
Right.
something, you know. In this cap or some sort of cap, and it's I think it's becoming my identity. You know, for the longest time it was my
Yeah.
hair,
Yeah.
and I was like, well, I'm not going to keep this forever. Like I get the power alleys are coming in, like the signs were
Power
there, man, and I
alleys.
was like, all right, so I'm gonna need to do something else to rebrand
Yeah.
myself a little bit
Right.
here.
Yeah.
So, but like Karen Booz from Anywhere Connect, she's always got blue hair,
Uh-huh.
you know, like, and you can always find Karen anywhere she goes.
Yep.
And I lost a little bit of that when I cut my
Right.
hair. I bumped into a buddy at IFA 2 years, the San Diego
Okay.
show, and he didn't even recognize me. He had no idea who I was because I'd cut my hair, and I realized how much of my persona and personality was wrapped up in that
Right.
hair.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I moved on to the hat
Hey,
now.
easier to take care of and replace for sure.
Oh, I wanted to say one thing complimentary about your training.
Hey,
So I occasionally am in there, right? Just kind of checking on our clients and reviewing
mhm.
content and running reports and making sure that everybody's getting their value out of the system. But you guys have created some pretty cool training materials, and in particular, I've seen a couple of neat
Yeah.
videos. And I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm a huge proponent of video based training,
Okay.
and I think in during COVID, everybody got more comfortable with watching videos. I think when you couldn't get somebody in your house to fix your washing machine, you had to go to a video to watch it, or your toilet's
Yep.
broken, you got to go to your video and watch it. And I started running statistics on videos, and the that sort of fascinating stat is that video can be retained 60,000 times faster than reading text.
Really.
And and that's a number that blew my mind, to the point where if I did a couple of goofy measurements where I'm like, okay, if it takes 4 years to get a bachelor's degree and I was going to do that 60,000 times faster, how long would it take? And the answer is it takes about 8.5 hours.
Okay.
That throws, it gives you a little bit of perception about, oh my goodness, video is powerful. But I think it's that notion of being able to see something done
Yep.
correctly. What does that look like? And I can pause, I can rewind. What did they do there?
Oh,
When they filed that nail, what were they doing there with that? And so I think we've come to this point in our lives where training material can be built and should be built to be short bite-sized
mhm.
chunks, things that you can absorb in just a couple of minutes. But can we give them a video so they can watch it, rewatch it, pause it? And it's also, they play so nicely on mobile devices. So we've got an
Yes.
app in the Apple App Store and Google Play, but being able to take your training, watch a video, and kind of rewatch that at your
Yeah.
pace. If for some reason things are slow, you're on a break and you want to revisit something, you got somebody coming in this afternoon doing something you don't normally do. Like maybe you're really good at nails and you're not as good as brows or whatever it is that you're doing that
Right.
day. You can watch that video and kind of help boost out your confidence a little bit.
Oh
And
yeah.
so it was something that your team is doing and leveraging. And I wanted to say kudos. Don't stop, man. Keep doing
that's
that. Keep it up,
that's all,
Kayla.
Kayla. I mean, like when we introduce new
Yeah.
services, one of the things that we consider is not just the cost of the products or anything like that. It's like, what's the cost of training 300 people across the country on how to do this the proper way? Because if all 300 don't know how to do it the same way, we're going to get different results and the clients are going to be happy, and that leads to bad things. So I know Kayla's
Yeah.
done a lot of videos on, we have a new product called Dazzle Dry. It's a premium product, super clean, and we want to get people, it's also going to help our service revenue per hour. So it's really important that we get that out there and as a service as
Yeah.
fast as possible. So there's a monetary aspect to, like, you speed that training up. I like the 60,000 times faster idea. That'd be great. We'd be done.
Right.
There's also that component of it too, not just from brand conformity, but everybody in the system has to be able to do the same services. Otherwise you can't book people openly, so like if you have a 12-person team and 3 of them can't do the Dazzle Dry service yet, you really can't offer the Dazzle Dry service yet, because someone might book and they're expecting a Dazzle Dry and they've got this person that doesn't know how to do it. So it's brand conformity, but it's also just professionalism and being able to get that to market faster, because theoretically, if you're
Yeah.
adding a new service, you're doing it because it improves your top line revenue, bottom line revenue, some of the KPIs, and you got to do that fast. So there's also like a speed to market aspect that provides another source of ROI on it for sure. As you know, I mean, I'm
All right.
preaching
Now
to the choir here. Yeah. I'm,
right. You are, but you're saying these words, right? These ROI, KPIs, both of those things remind me of certain things. And one of them that I was going to make aware to you was that Learning Zen as a supplier is a little bit unique in this space in the sense that working with franchise brands, you realize as you study this and learn more about them, oftentimes, they have a franchise advisory committee,
Mhm.
which, I think is a wonderful idea. And so I stole it and I brought it to Learning Zen.
Oh, great.
And so as a supplier, we actually have a franchise advisory committee made up of our franchise clients that rotates every couple of years. And so
Well,
I'm really hopeful that you're going to join it. We open back up again this June for our next group that we'll bring in.
sure.
But that's part of the reason why we have those KPIs now on the dashboard for the franchisee and the administrator. We rolled it out maybe about 4 months ago, where, if you log in as a franchisee, first thing you see is this rather elegant, dashboard on the reports
Mhm.
page that shows you, who is the most successful people at your location, who's taken the most courses, which courses are most popular. But it also shows you the inverse of that, which is who's not taking their training, which courses are they not watching. And so,
Mhm.
as you mentioned, the KPIs, that's something that we actually was a, a new functionality that got brought to us by our franchise advisory committee. So we
Interesting.
didn't have that before. Our franchise customers said, wouldn't it be nice if our owners could get a quick visual of how things were going at their particular store?
Mhm.
And so we went out to built it to their specs and rolled it out to the community. And it will continue to get better, but we wouldn't have necessarily come up with that idea on our own.
Yeah.
So kudos to the franchise advisory committee at Learning Zen. It's something that I, I mean, I hope other suppliers are hearing this in a lot of ways, because I think it's really helped us improve our product. I think it would help you, improve your product. We all have boards that we're talking to, but the advisory board in particular is one that I think can really move the needle.
That's I'm so glad that you guys are doing that, and I'd be surprised. I mean, there's some companies that I know that could really benefit from hearing input from the users themselves, rather than sometimes it's engineering driven. Computer engineers are like, well,
Yeah.
look at that, it looks great that way, and we're like, it looks great that way, but it has nothing to do with how we actually provide the service to our customer. It doesn't make sense that way, or how we check people out, or whatever the case
Yeah.
may be. But that's a really good point.
Yeah. What my team wants to build might not have aligned.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So,
Well,
yeah.
everything happens in a conversation. So, a real conversation when people are sitting together, or, even remotely, but, great minds coming together, and I think it's a true fact that, like, the more ideas are automatically going to generate the better ideas. It's almost never the case where more ideas has resulted in a worse solution. So asking the people to be involved is gigantic. So thanks for sharing that. That's good from a supplier perspective. I can ask people that as
you're well. Thank you. I mean, you triggered it. So
well, that's great. I'm glad we helped some way. And with that, Doug, I think we'll wrap it up. And I just wanted to thank you for your time. Also, how can people learn more about Learning Zen? And also, I'd love for you to mention your podcast, so that that people can kind of what we want from everybody in our system and anybody that's in franchising is to kind of engage more in it, because you can have your mind on driving 99%. And if you're listening to a podcast, you might hear something like plug in to people that are talking about franchising and tools and vendors and things like that. And it's amazing how fast you can go up. So not that I want people to only listen to your podcast while they're driving. Don't get me wrong. So, but what is your podcast? And then how do we learn more about Learning Zen?
Yeah, so my podcast is called 5 Franchising Questions. It's made up of that, and then we have a little side bit called the Fast Five, which is a fun little spin-off we grew out of that original project. But yeah, we are really invested in social media. So we are on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, you name it, we're out there. We've got a YouTube channel as well. And then, of course, the site, just
Yeah.
learningzen.com, and my email, just dougm@learningzen.com. So,
Great.
Guy, thank you so much for having me on and giving us this opportunity to kind of have a platform
Yeah.
ourselves. This was really awesome for me to be on the other side of the chair. So thank you.
It's a little bit different, isn't it?
Yeah, it totally is. But I
Yeah.
love it. So it's, yeah, both sides I love. I love asking the questions, and yeah, we both do a little bit of research right before we meet with our guests.
Yep.
And so, I learn things about you, like the anytime fitness thing, or by watching your podcast. I know that I believe your wife is from Minnesota.
Oh, yeah. Minnesota.
Oh,
sure.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You betcha.
That's awesome.
Yep. Well, thanks so much for being on, Doug. Look forward to our next conversation. I'm sure it won't be too far down the line, and really appreciate you. Thank you.